happen, but this should not be factored in to your normal bankroll. Now, future bets like divisional futures, who's going to win the division, who's going to win the conference, who's going to win the championship or Super Bowl or World Series, I like those more. I'm not saying they're great. In most cases, it's more profitable to bet that they're not going to win. If you find a book to minus, you can bet a bunch of minus 2,000s and, maybe keep the top 10 teams out of that. But the truth is, if you can shop your lines, you can find some value if you feel that you know more than the sports books about a certain teams. So, shopping is the most important because I've seen books favoring a team at 20-1 to win the national title and other books having that same team at 90-1. This is something really important to shop. In most cases, when it comes to national championships in college sports, I got to tell you, they're really hard because that's how good the top teams are. They don't draft in college. They picked the Alabamas, the Clemsons, the Dukes, in basketball, the North Carolinas, the Kentuckys. They pick the best players, and they all come to the same team. Okay, so just know that when it comes to championships, it's probably better in professional sports. But when it comes to divisions and conferences, you got to love them. Especially when it comes to smaller conferences, there's a ton of value there in the American Athletic, the Conference USA, the Mid American Conference. There's tons of value looking at this, and if you can get the right one, that's where you take a couple shots, but don't do too many of them. I think that personally, I love to do them because you can hedge. Say you have like the year I had Michigan 50-1 beat Villanova, huge hedging opportunity. Bet Villanova 15 times your bets, what I did. So, that's a great idea and a great way to make some of your money and to hedge it. You at least make, 10 times your bet or whatever, or just by sacrificing 10 of those units. And if you were right the whole time, you win 40, So that's what I love about future bets. But like I said, be very careful and don't do a whole lot of them. I also like betting season win totals. Now, season win totals, you can eliminate some of the variance that happens. The example I used is like when Clemson lost to Syracuse in 2007, they still went 11-1 and cashed the over 10.5 season win total bets, but they had one of their worst losses against Syracuse. They didn't lose against Florida State or Boston College. They lost against Syracuse that year when Syracuse wasn't supposed to be that good. And, you still hit your season win total because they just being that good of a team, you get rid of that in just one game variance. A lot of professional bettors like season win totals because you get rid of that variance and, you can definitely find some value there. The problem is you're letting the sports books hold on to your money for a long time, sometimes almost up to a year, and they don't pay you interest. But if you think you have a good investment, it's definitely not a bad idea to do that. Always try to keep track of your bets. Keep a spreadsheet. There's some apps that keep track of your bets. You want to, see if you're using multiple sports books, it's hard to kind of always keep that in your mind. You want to see where you're profitable. So hopefully you got some information from that. There's other sections in this article that explain when it's okay to buy off a point. Most of the time it's not to buy a point from Vegas. Obviously, these sports books are here to make money, but there's some instances that are. And it kind of shows you how to calculate the value of buying off a point. I came up with all those numbers and posted it in this article, and it's up right now at bettingbuck.com. And if you have any questions about anything we covered, please tweet me or the Odds Breakers, at the Odds Breakers. We'll get back to you, or contact us via the website. Now let's get into our free play. For our free play, I'm going to go right into the Big Ten because that's what I've been working on. And believe it or not, my friends, I like the Minnesota Golden Gophers to go over 7.5 wins. That's the play-in. Let's talk about it here a little bit. First of all, I love their schedule. Their schedule is absolutely fantastic. Second of all, I love their coach. Third of all, I love their returning production. Fourth of all, I love how they finished the season. PJ Fleck has done a great job since leaving Western Michigan. Western Michigan's going down. Minnesota has been going up. They return quarterback Zach Annexstad that started last year, and then, Tanner Morgan was injured, but then he came in when Zach got injured, and Tanner Morgan did extremely well and finished the season exceptionally tough. They went to Wisconsin in Camp Randall Stadium and stole the axe back to Minnesota after, I want to say 20 years. I don't know. It's been so long. I can't even remember. I'm a Badger fan. I cannot remember the last time that Minnesota had that ass, but they went into Wisconsin and kicked their butt. Wisconsin, were they a little bit injured? Sure. Minnesota was injured too because they didn't have Antoine Winfield, their best safety. They lost him early in the season. They lost both the running backs to torn ACLs, and they still happened to prevail. As a matter of fact, Minnesota has been scoring on an average 28.9 points per game in a tough Big Ten schedule last year. And they scored 37 at Wisconsin, and then they played Georgia Tech, and Georgia Tech was looking good. Georgia Tech was coming off wins against Miami, Virginia, North Carolina, Virginia Tech. They lost to Georgia, but that's Georgia. And then Minnesota goes to this bowl game and just literally destroys Georgia Tech. All right. Just beats the hell out of them, 34-10. Georgia Tech was running all over everybody. Minnesota stuffed them. Their returning production is ridiculous, okay? Now their schedule is ridiculous because guess what? They don't have to play Ohio State. They don't have to play Michigan. And they don't have to play Michigan State. And guess who they get? They get Penn State. And Penn State is without who? Trace McSorley, the quarterback that's been leading them the last 4 years. They don't have Saquon Barkley, of course, or Miles Sanders. Penn State is missing a ton of production. And Penn State has to go to Minnesota. Not only that, Minnesota hosts Wisconsin this year for their last game. They host them, and they host everybody's little darling Nebraska this year because everyone's saying how Nebraska is the team to beat. Well, Nebraska also has an easy schedule, but it's not as easy as Minnesota's schedule. Minnesota's non-conference game, South Dakota State at Fresno State, and Fresno State has replaced everybody this year. They lost everybody, tons of production. And then Georgia Southern at home, another option team, just like Georgia Tech. Okay, that's Minnesota. Then they got Purdue. Then they got Illinois at home. Then they have Nebraska at home. Then Rutgers. Then Maryland at home. Then Penn State at home. They go to Iowa, they go to Northwestern, and then they have Wisconsin at home. I see an easy 8 wins, possibly 9 wins here. The only ones that I can see them losing is Wisconsin, one of them against Iowa and or Northwestern, possibly against Nebraska, but there's not much other losses there. I think they beat Penn State. I'm thinking this play, and Minnesota should be somewhat of a dark horse this year. I love some of the players that they got back. Antoine Winfield, their linebacker Barber, he's a beast. The only question is quarterback play. I love their receiver Tyler Johnson. This defense was shut down at the end of last year. Man, they get their running backs back. as a Badger fan, I hate to say it, they are our rivals. They have the schedule, they have the setup, and I think they have the coach to do some damage this year. Row the boat, PJ Fleck. Take over 7.5 wins. All right. Well, I hope you enjoyed the podcast here. Got a little technical with our sports betting 101, but the article hopefully is a little bit better to explain some of the things that I went over. It has all the charts that it created for winning percentages. It has the calculations I have to show you examples of why bets are good, why numbers are important, and which ones to buy on and off of. And there's any situations you should be doing that in. So, like I said, if you have any questions, feel free to tweet us at the Odds Breakers. Rate, review, and subscribe on iTunes and Google Play. Everyone have a blast this weekend and start betting those season win totals. Go get some money.